Hello and welcome. My name is Alan, and today we are going to talk about some more notable people from the region. Today we are talking about notable people from Greeneville, Tennessee, and notable people from Johnson City, Tennessee. Johnson City will take a while because it's a pretty good list. Johnson City was a pretty big city. I mean, it's not huge by any imagination of the U.S., but for the region, it's a pretty big city. So, but first, let's go ahead and do Greeneville. So from Greeneville, we've got David Dale Alexander. He was an American baseball player and manager, and was even the 1932 American League batting champion. So, had a bit of success in professional baseball. Next is Thomas D. Arnold. He was an American politician who served 2 terms in the U.S. House of Representatives, representing Tennessee's 2nd District from 1831 to 1833, and the 1st District from 1841 to 1843. He was also a staunch opponent of Andrew Jackson, who we know became president of the U.S. Next is Elias Nelson Conway. He was an American politician who served as the 5th governor of Arkansas from 1852 to 1860. Next person, William Crutchfield, an American politician who represented the 3rd Congressional District of Tennessee in the U.S. House of Representatives for 1 term, 1873 to 1875. He also served several terms as an alderman in his adopted hometown of Chattanooga. And he was known as a Southern Unionist. Like I said, there are those people who wanted to keep the country together, even in the South, especially in this mountain region. It was kind of split because there's a lot of people like that. The whole state of West Virginia happened because they didn't want to secede with the rest of Virginia. So, like I'm saying, the mountain area is kind of an interesting tale here because there's so many. If you really want to see where it was brother against brother, family member against family member because of the war, yeah, the mountain area really was. Next person we're going to talk about, Samuel Doak. He was an American Presbyterian clergyman, Calvinist educator, and a former slave owner in the early movement in the U.S. But he was also he was a former slave owner, but he was also in the early movement in the United States for the abolition of slavery. So while he did own slaves, he decided it wasn't right, and he ended up no longer owning slaves. I'd say some of the region is named after him. His name's Samuel Doak, and one of the places you hear of is Chucky Doak. He was also a delegate to the lost state of Franklin, which convened in Greeneville, Tennessee. That's another story if you want to know about is a potential state that was parts of western North Carolina and eastern Tennessee that almost became a state in itself called the state of Franklin. It only lasted a couple years, but it happened. Next person we're going to talk about, Colonel Joseph Herndon Sr. He was an assemblyman for the province of North Carolina and was a signatory of the Tryon Resolves. Early in the War for Independence, as a member of the militia from Tryon County, Herndon fought the Cherokee allies of Britain along the western frontier. He was also Speaker of the House for the state of Franklin and trustee of Greeneville, now Tusculum College. Next person we're going to talk about is Andrew Johnson. He was the 17th President of the United States and was Vice President under Abraham Lincoln. You know, in fact, he was the president. He became president after Lincoln was assassinated. And was one of literally just a handful of presidents who's ever been through impeachment. He was also alderman and mayor of Greeneville, a U.S. senator, and like I said, a U.S. vice president and U.S. president. So Andrew Johnson. The next person we're going to talk about is Sergeant Elbert Luther Kinzer. Was a United States Marine who sacrificed his life at the Battle of Okinawa during World War II. He threw himself on a grenade, absorbing the explosion with his body and protecting his men, for which he received the Medal of Honor. Yeah. U.S. Marine Base Camp Kinzer, located on the island of Okinawa, is actually named for Sergeant Kinzer. So, next person we're going to talk about is Frank Little. There's not much listed here, but was an operatic, lyric tenor, opera singer, and educator. Next person we're going to talk about, Samuel Milligan. He was a justice of the Tennessee Supreme Court and a judge for the Court of Claims. And apparently was a close friend and confidant of President Andrew Johnson, who we just talked about. He also spent time as a state representative. So, next is Samuel Ramsey Rogers. He was an American attorney, judge, and politician who served as Speaker of the Tennessee Senate during the months following the Civil War. He oversaw the passage of several important pieces of legislation in the Senate, including the state's ratification of the 13th Amendment. He was a Southern Unionist, and like we said, he was a post-Civil War Speaker of the Tennessee Senate. So again, there's that point of people from this region trying to wanting the Union to hold together. The next person we're going to talk about is Oliver Perry Temple. He was an American attorney, author, judge, and economic promoter active primarily in East Tennessee in the latter half of the 19th century, the 1800s. During the months leading up to the Civil War, Temple played a pivotal role in organizing East Tennessee's Unionists. So, yeah. The next person we're going to talk about is Malcolm Wheeler Nicholson. He was an American pulp magazine writer and entrepreneur who pioneered the American comic book, publishing the first such periodical consisting solely of original material rather than reprints of newspaper comic strips. He was the founder of National Allied Publications, which would later evolve into DC Comics. So yeah, one of the people, I guess you could say, was one of the founding fathers of Greeneville, or DC Comics. He lived and was native to Greeneville before his family ended up moving away early in his childhood. The next person we're going to talk about is Park Overall. She was an American actress, environmental and women's rights activist, and former U.S. Senate candidate, known for her trademark heavy Southern accent. Her best-known role was as Nurse Laverne Todd in the sitcom Empty Nest, though she has appeared in a number of feature films. And well, it's a group actually, a group of people. It's not just one person. The band Perry. Musical siblings Kimberly, Reed, and Neil Perry. Exceptionally talented, their modern take on country music attracts many fans to the genre. Kimberly's unique vocal skills is widely recognized as being one of the best in the business. They're signed to Republic Nashville in August 2009 and released their self-titled debut album on October the 12th, 2010. And I've had a number of hits and are still around. So yeah, the band Perry is from Greeneville. But that, as I said, was Greeneville, Tennessee. Now, let's get to the really big one. Johnson City, Tennessee. I actually lived in Johnson City for about 5 years. Went to college there in East Tennessee State University. It's not where I'm originally from. I'm back living where I was originally born and raised. But yeah, I lived in Johnson City for a while. It's a pretty good town. It's even got a minor league baseball team. I think it's the Cardinals, Johnson City Cardinals. But anyway, um, Yeah, this is going to be a pretty big one. It's got 2 rows of names here, so let's get into this. First person they have on the list, Bill Bain, one of the founders of the management consultancy Bain and Company. Um, was an American management consultant known for his role as one of the founders of the management consultancy company that bears his name, Bain and Company. So yeah. The next person we have listed here, Stephen Burke. He's a former medical professor at East Tennessee State University, uh, Quillen College of Medicine. He later moved to Amarillo, Texas, and wrote in 2011 Anatomy of a Kidnapping, a Doctor's Story, a memoir of his 4-hour kidnapping and release in 2005. He is currently the Dean of Medicine at Texas Tech University in Lubbock, Texas. So he was, medical professor here at East Tennessee. That's where I went to college when I lived in Johnson City. But yeah. The next person we're going to talk about is Sam Bentz, lead singer for the rock band K's Choice, and was also a Johnson City firefighter for a year. Sam Bentz is a Belgian musician and lead singer of the Belgian band K's Choice. Known for his enigmatic husky voice, and Sam is a transgender man. He started transitioning in 2019, formerly known as Sarah Bentz. So yeah, not originally from Johnson City, but lived in Johnson City for a while. The next person we're going to talk about is Jerry Blevins, an American professional baseball pitcher who is currently a free agent. Blevins was drafted by the Chicago Cubs in the 17th round of the 2004 Major League Baseball draft. He made his Major League debut in 2007. And apparently he also played for the New York Mets, because that's the picture they've got of him here. So next person we're going to talk about is Ernie Bowman. He was an American professional baseball player, an infielder, who appeared in 165 games in the major leagues for the San Francisco Giants from 1961 to 1963. So, yeah. The next person we're going to talk about is Joe Bowman, who is a bootmaker and marksman and guardian of Western culture. It says American marksman called the straight shooter, considered to have been a guardian of Texas and Western frontier culture. He is also an Eagle Scout, Army soldier, and bootmaker. Next person we're going to talk about is Mike Brown. Brown is an American former professional motocross racer and endurocross racer. He was the 2001 American Motorcyclist Association 125cc motocross national champion. The next person we have is Joe Carson, an American playwright, poet, fiction writer, and actor, as well as author of 3 children's books. Her best-known play was Day Trips in 1991, and her poetry is collected in Stories I Ain't Told Nobody Yet from 1989. So yeah, Joe Carson. The next person, George Carter. He was an American entrepreneur and known as the Empire Builder of Southwest Virginia. His ventures led to the development and modernization of many parts of the southern Appalachian region during the late 19th and early 20th centuries, so the late 1800s and early 1900s. The next person is David Cash. He's a professional wrestler who is better known by his ring name, Kid Cash. He's also an American mixed martial artist, but he's best known for his tenures with ECW, TNA, and the WWE. The next person we're going to talk about is David Coe, who was an American songwriter and record producer. Coe was one half of the dance music duo C&C Music Factory, which he founded with his musical partner Robert Clavilles, I guess. But yeah, C&C Music Factory, they had a hit. Oh, goodness. What was that? C Music Factory song or hit. Gonna make you sweat. Everybody dance now. Okay, so yeah, it was that one. But it was that really bum, 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 bum. Everybody dance now. Bum, 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 bum. But yeah, that was probably their biggest hit. Anyway, the next person we're going to talk about is Patrick Cronin, who is an American stage, television, and film actor best known for his television appearances spanning 3 decades, and was also a professor of English and theater at East Tennessee State University. So yeah. Adjust that screen there. All right. The next person we're going to talk about is Matt Zucker, I guess, is how you pronounce it. I'm sorry if I'm butchering that. But he is an American actor and is known for his roles as Logan Huntsberger on the WB television series Gilmore Girls, and as Carrie Agos on the CBS television drama The Good Wife. And, he actually lived in Johnson City for a while, attending one of the big high schools there, Science Hill High School. Shout out to the Science Hill Hilltoppers. All right. The next person we're going to talk about is David Davis. He is a Republican politician from Tennessee, and a one-term member of the U.S. House of Representatives and the Tennessee, as well as the Tennessee House of Representatives. I couldn't get the accentuation on that correct. But he represented the 1st Congressional District of Tennessee. The next person we're going to talk about is Lindsay Ellis, an American film critic, YouTuber, cinematographer, essayist, short film director, and author. From 2008 to 2014, Ellis was part of the Channel Awesome production company under the web name The Nostalgia Chick, a counterpart to the Nostalgia Critic. But, yeah. Next person we're going to talk about is Ray Flynn, who is a retired middle distance runner who works as a sports agent. Over the course of his racing career, Flynn ran a total of 89 sub 4-minute miles, with his best time of 3 minutes 49 seconds, or 49.77 seconds, being on the 7th of July 1982 in Oslo, at the Bislett Games Dream Mile. But yeah, that's pretty good if you've got 84 sub 4-minute miles. That is impressive. That is hard to do. You're getting into the better levels when you get that under 4 minutes. The next person we're talking about is Abreu Franklin. He is a former American football nose tackle, and in 2015 was the assistant coach for the San Francisco 49ers. He was drafted by the Baltimore Ravens in the 2003 NFL Draft and played college football at the University of Tennessee as a volunteer. So, yeah. So, an assistant coach for the San Francisco 49ers, as well as a former defensive tackle. The next person we're going to talk about is Wick. Come on now. Come on, computer, work with me. I can't get it to come up for some reason. Now let's try it. There it is. Wick Godfrey, who is a film producer and studio executive. He's best known for producing the Twilight Saga series and the Maze Runner series. He is also partner in the production company Temple Hill Entertainment with his friend Marty Bowen, in which they founded the company in 2006. So apparently he lived in Johnson City for a while if he wasn't born here. The next person is Jake Grove, who was actually born in Johnson City. He played football for the Virginia Tech Hokies and was the Remington Trophy winner, which I believe is for the best center. Yeah, so he won the Remington Trophy while he was playing at Virginia Tech in college. And then he went on to play for the Miami Dolphins in the NFL for 7 seasons, as well as being drafted by the Oakland Raiders. But yeah, Jake Grove. Next person we're going to talk about is Dale Harris, who is an American basketball coach who is currently the vice president of the Texas Legends in the NBA D-League affiliate of the Dallas Mavericks. He served as head coach for the NBA's Houston Rockets, Milwaukee Bucks, and Los Angeles Lakers. But yeah, he attended Milligan College in Johnson City. The next person we want to talk about is Holly Herndon, who is an American composer, musician, and sound artist based in Berlin, Germany. After studying composition at Stanford University and completing her PhD at Stanford University's Center for Computer Research and Music and Acoustics, she pursued her international career. Yeah, so. But apparently she was originally born in Johnson City. Yeah, 1980, born and raised in Johnson City. Let's see. Takes care of one row. Let's get the other side here. The next person we're going to talk about is Mark Herring, who is an American lawyer who is the 47th Attorney General of the state of Virginia. He also served in the Senate of Virginia since a 2006 special election representing the 33rd District, which, oddly enough, is made up of parts of Fairfax and Loudoun counties up north. Okay. But the next person we're going to talk about is Stephen James, who is an author of more than 30 books, including the critically acclaimed Bowers Files, an 11-book series of psychological thrillers that includes Opening Moves, Every Crooked Path, Every Deadly Kiss, Every Wicked Man, The Pawn, The Rook, The Knight, The Bishop, The Queen. Yeah. But yeah, he was a novelist, and he attended East Tennessee State University in Johnson City, so. Make sure everything's in good shape here as far as the screen. Alright, back to the list. Next person we're going to talk about is Drew Johnson, who is a political commentator and columnist and founder of the Beacon Center of Tennessee. Drew is a columnist, American political commentator, investigative reporter, and former think tank executive. He is a senior scholar at the National Center for Public Policy Research, a columnist at Newsmax, and a contributor to the Daily Caller. So the next person we're going to talk about is Catherine Marshall, who is an author born in Johnson City and later worked on her novel Christie while staying with relatives in town. But she's an author of nonfiction, inspirational, and fiction works. Next person we're going to talk about is John Allen Maxwell, an American artist known primarily for his book and magazine illustrations, as well as historical paintings. He also was an illustrator of many commercial publications, including Collier's Weekly, the Saturday Evening Post, the Golden Book magazine. So yeah, he was raised in Johnson City. John Allen Maxwell. Also illustrated for authors Pearl S. Buck, John Steinbeck, and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, and spent his last 18 years in Johnson City as well. A permanent collection is housed there at the Carol Reese Museum at East Tennessee State University. So he has pretty good ties with the Johnson City. The next person we're going to talk about is Johnny Miller, who is an American former professional golfer and one of the top players in the world during the mid-1970s. He was the first to shoot 63 in a major championship to win the 1973 U.S. Open, and ranked second in the world. So yeah, Johnny Miller. Next person we're going to talk about is Daniel Norris, an American professional baseball pitcher for the Detroit Tigers of Major League Baseball, and he previously pitched in the majors for the Toronto Blue Jays, with whom he debuted with in 2014. Next person we're going to talk about is Mike Potter, a retired NASCAR driver who was born on the 4th of July in 1949 and currently resides in Johnson City. Next person we're going to talk about is Eureka OHara, a drag queen and television personality whose real name is David Huggard. But OHara is known for competing in the 9th and 10th seasons of the reality competition television series RuPaul's Drag Race. Yeah, Johnson City has quite a LGBTQ community. It's one of the bigger ones in the region, or probably the biggest in the region, one of the bigger ones in the South. So, but the next person we're going to talk about is Phil Rowe, who is an American politician and physician who is currently the U.S. representative for Tennessee's 1st District, of which he has been serving since 2009. But I believe this is his last term because they're doing primaries to see who's going to run for the 1st district. So he's also been the mayor of Johnson City. So next person we're going to talk about is MoSabri, an American hip-hop artist and actor from Johnson City. He's best known for his music videos on YouTube and being named Best Dressed at the 59th Grammy Awards. So, yeah. Next person we're going to talk about is Brian Lewis Saunders, who is an East Tennessee State University alumnus, is an endurance artist, a performance artist, a videographer, performance poet, and self-portrait painter known for his disturbing spoken word rants and tragic art performances. The next person we're going to talk about is Connie Saylor, who was a journeyman NASCAR driver and a Johnson City business owner. Next person we're going to talk about is Constance Shulman, an American actress. She is best known for voicing Patty Mayonnaise on the animated series Doug, and for her recurring role as Yoga Jones in Orange is the New Black. Shulman also originated the role of Annelle in the first production of Steel Magnolias off-Broadway. But yeah, been an actress, a singer, and producer. Next person we're going to talk about is Steve Spurrier. He was a Heisman-winning quarterback and a college football Hall of Fame coach, and spent most of his childhood in Johnson City and attended Science Hill High School. In fact, the school's football field is named Steve Spurrier Field. And he was often called the old head ball coach. He coached the University of Florida. He was actually born in Miami Beach, but grew up in Tennessee, going to high school in Science Hill. So, yeah, Steve Spurrier. Next person we're going to talk about is Robert Love Taylor and Alfred A. Taylor, who are brothers who were both each governor of Tennessee, each owned and resided in Robin's Roost, which is a historic house on South Roan Street, which is one of the big streets that run through Johnson City. I used to work on South Roan Street at a gas station when I lived there, so. But Robert Love Taylor was a politician, writer, and lecturer, and he served 3 terms as governor from 1887 to 1891, and again from 1887 to 1891, and again from 1897 to 1899, and subsequently served as U.S. Senator from 1907 until his death. And his brother, Alfred A. Taylor, come on now, Alfred, was an American politician and lecturer, and served as governor of Tennessee from 1921 to 1923, and was one of 3 Republicans to hold the position from the end of Reconstruction to the later half of the 20th century. And it's funny because he was a Republican, but his brother was a Democrat. So again, I'm telling you, they're right around that time of the Civil War. They're brothers from this mountain area, but they were split. One was a Democrat, one was a Republican. When they really talk about brother versus brother and stuff, this area really exemplifies that type of situation. But yeah. Next person we're going to talk about is Brad Teague, who is a retired American professional stock car racing driver. He is a veteran of the NASCAR Winston Cup Series, Nationwide Series, and Camping World Truck Series. Next person we're going to talk about is Ed Whitson, who is a former Major League Baseball pitcher. And he's best known for a brief but colorful stint with the New York Yankees in the 1980s. Although the picture shows him in a San Diego Padres uniform, so he also played for the Padres, apparently. So, next person we're going to talk about is Samuel Coe Williams, a noted 19th and 20th century Tennessee jurist, historian, educator, and businessman, and was also the first dean of the Emory University School of Law, which is a university in Atlanta, Georgia. And the last person we're going to talk about is Van Williams, who is a former American football running back in the NFL for the Buffalo Bills and New York Giants. He played college football at East Tennessee State University and at Carson Newman College, and was drafted in the 1982 NFL Draft. But he played running back and kick returner. But yeah, he attended Science Hill and went to ETSU, and then later Carson Newman College, where he was an All-American. Van Williams. But that is everybody from Johnson City. And everybody from Greeneville, Tennessee. Now, I know this was a long video, but I hope you enjoyed it. As I said, I'm just using lists that are off Wikipedia, which is a very flimsy thing, but it is what it is. But as always, educate thyself, think, read, study, learn. Someone tries to tell you something you have trouble believing, ask them to cite their sources. I'll see you all in the next video. Until then, later.